Alrighty, we're gonna rally everyone up. I'm gonna kick Anthony out because he's a big talker. Be gone, sir. We'll start in just 1 minute here. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. If we haven't met, my name is Colin. I am Scottish enough to be heard without a microphone, but to be nice to everyone online, I was talking to this thing. I remember I went to church with a guy for about 3 years, and it occurred to me at the very end, when he was very angry at everyone, that I had never seen him smile in the entire time I had known him. Not once. And I remember thinking that that's weird for a number of reasons, in part because he's a Christian, right? And I was trying to think about why is that wrong? Because it's not simply that you're supposed to be happy as a Christian. It was deeper than that. And so I actually had to spend time thinking about it. And I had to consider whether or not it was just my own judgments or something else. Because I thought, well, I'm from Scotland. I know what terrible teeth look like. We only discovered electricity 10 years ago. Don't hold us against us that we're still trying to catch up on a number of things. But I was wondering, it's not that, because I know people who smile even if their teeth aren't right. There's something deeper going on there. And I was trying to think, why is that wrong that this guy hasn't smiled? And it's in part because if you love the Lord, thankfulness is going to be a part of your life. You're going to reflect on things that are good. You're going to count your blessings. Dare I say it, you might try to enjoy this life while you're alive, right? And so I actually had to go a little bit deeper to think about things. And so today, we're actually thinking about how we think about things. And we're going to be in Ephesians chapter 5 for the entire time. We'll actually read a fair amount of text, but what we're going to do is we're going to lift one phrase from the middle of this chapter, and we're going to think about it the whole way through our text because it encourages us to think about how we think. And as I mentioned this to Joe at the start, he said, "What if you don't think?" And I said, well, I think that might just be called being a dude at times. I was telling him I went to the zoo over the weekend. I took my soon-to-be 3-year-old there, and it was really fun. We went as a family. And in order to wait to see the lion cubs, it was a giant line that took about 75 minutes to go through. And I thought, things like this, they're really for kids. So y'all go off, you have a good time. And I'll just stand here. And my wife felt really bad. She said, I feel so bad for you standing there. And I said, I don't feel bad for me at all. I get to stand here and think about nothing. It's amazing as a man when you get to think about nothing. I'm not thinking about my job. I'm not thinking about what's going on at home. Nothing. It was glorious for my brain. But at other times, like we're doing today, we want to think about how we think. So let's pray. Lord, I do thank you for your goodness upon us. I do thank you for your mercy and hope. And that, God, you give us not only a new way to go through life, Lord, but you really allow us to step back and think about how you've made things to be. Amen. All right. I'm at a part in my life where I'm half deaf, so feel free to scream your answers at me because I won't get them any other way. Open question for everyone. Have you ever had a moment where something has forced you to not only think about what you're doing, but how you think about the things that you're doing? Have you ever had something that did that? And if so, what was it? That's really neat. I don't have a job. I guess I do have a job that forces me to think that way. I ghostwrite for a job, which means I can't tell you about what I do. I pretend to be somebody else. It's quite funny. And so I have to think about how to be that person. And one of the ways that I know that I'm good at my job is if I sit there and I go, well, it's not how I'd say it, but da-da-da-da-da. It's like I'm pretending to be someone else. I'm thinking about how it goes. So yeah, a job can actually get you there. Anyone else? What you got? Yeah, something not working typically does get us thinking about how something works. Because I get it. If the way that you are living your life works, why would you think about it? Like, this is great. But when it's not working, you're like, I guess I have to go back and try something else. Calagene, how about you?
Living in another culture because we think differently, and how do I approach these people? How do I use their language the way they would? It's a beaut, and I'm not sure I ever did a good job of it.
Right, and I imagine in part it's not just to share the gospel in ways that are understood. It's also just to even have relationship, even as a starting point, to think about that way. Yeah, I think we've all met that difficult person where you just go, apparently I cannot come in just the way I normally engage with people, and I have to think about how I engage with them. Anyone else? Anything that's caused you to think about how you think? All right. So when I was getting my training as a writer, one of the people that was talked about is a guy named David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace wrote a giant brick of a book called Infinite Jest. You could rob a bank with it. It was so thick. And it's full of all these footnotes. I don't like footnotes. I've read some other books that do it. I just want to read. I don't want to jump down and read and then come back to where I was. And so I never really connected with David Foster Wallace that way. But he wrote a number of essays that were useful. And this was not a Christian man, but he would often talk about things in Christian terms because he realized that it was actually an influence of how life was. This is kind of before we lived in a post-Christian culture. And so he was talking about that what you give your attention to is what you worship. But I really like him as a thinker. And one of the ways he talked about in terms of how we think, he said it's kind of like this. When you look at a fish that is swimming through a bowl, it is not thinking about its environment at all because it's in it all the time. Like, have you ever seen a fish that's in very dirty water? They're not thinking, boy, this water sure is dirty. They're just going through it because that's where they live all the time. They actually can't come out of the water to judge it, if that makes sense. And he says that one of the struggles of being a person is that you actually can't step far enough back to think about how you think. It's when you realize that my brain can't figure out the things that are wrong with my brain. It takes other things like a job. It takes things that aren't working. Inevitably, if you've got people who are close to you, whether it's a spouse or kids or a boss who's monitoring how you do at your job, they are going to tell you things about yourself that you cannot see. In fact, one of the great David Foster Wallace quotes is, he said, people can see things about you that you yourself cannot see, even if those people are stupid. Thank you, David Foster Wallace. Very insightful. And it's true. Someone outside of you can see how you interact. There's been plenty of times where I've been arguing with my wife, and she says, "Why do you do this?" I say, "Do what?" She said, well, I've noticed in the 17,000 arguments that we've had in our time together as a married couple that you do this whenever we get in an argument. It's like, oh, she is calling out my processes, how I think. It's a further back thing, not just the words that I'm saying on the surface, but actually things that are coming out of me and to shape the way that I think the whole way through. Like, one of the great things about being in church is that we get God's perspective. He is outside of the fishbowl. He can look at all of us and he can speak truth about how we think and feel. So let's go to Ephesians chapter 5. And I'm going to read just a couple verses that I want us to keep in mind the whole way through. I'll be reading from the NIV, but I want to highlight one thing from the New King James Version. I typically don't teach out of the New King James, purely because it's a bunch of run-on sentences, and so if you're trying to zoom in on one part, it gets a little bit harder. No knock on the NKJV, because I'll be using it to highlight something, but that's why. So this is Ephesians 5, starting in verse 15. It says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, for the days are evil." One of the things that the New King James says, instead of make the most of every opportunity, it says you need to redeem your time. And I tell you, that phrase about redeeming your time has become core and key to how I think about how I think. So, bear that phrase in mind, redeeming your time. I will also flag to you that it says quite bluntly, the days are evil. Has anyone had some of those reminders as you go through life that the days are in fact evil? And if so, what has brought it to mind? The news. Very short, very succinct, very true. The news can get you. I think sometimes when we see something that is truly senseless violence, where you go, I don't even understand why you would think that way or why you would respond that way, that can get us thinking about it. And one of the hard things about our culture is that if you are going to engage with the world, it turns out that the world engages with you first. And here's what I mean. If you remember, about a month or two ago now, there was a CEO who was caught on a kiss cam at a concert, and his basically affair was exposed. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, God has blessed you with ignorance, and I truly mean that. I remember being younger, and if I didn't know what something meant culture-wise, like a phrase or a story, I was like, I need to go find out. Now, if I don't know what something means, I'm like, good. It'll probably bombard me around the head anyway, whether I want it to or not. But what was weird about this particular story is that it was the story for about a week. You couldn't go anywhere online or even in person without hearing about this story. And it occurred to me after about a week of just hearing this every single day that I hadn't sought out any of it. None of it. It had just come my way anyway. It was the water that I was swimming through with everyone else. I didn't even get a choice. And I just go, if I'm just taking this stuff in and I'm not thinking about it, I'm going to get a very different view than what the Bible has to say. I will not be renewed by the transforming of my mind, the way that Romans 12 talks about, right? I actually have to take action to do something different. So yeah, the news can convince us that the days are evil. Anyone else have something come to mind that has got them to think about how the days are evil? Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. Like, that's the people you love the most. How can it go that way?
I don't know if I'm misreading this, so you tell me if I am, Greg. You totally missed it. It kind of makes me feel like when it says here, so then be careful how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil. What stands out to me is the days are evil. Over days, you will start to break down. us, it's twofold. One, we have unlimited time, of course, because we are promised life forever. But at the same time, that's not a promise that everyone's going to be able to take advantage of. So we need to be wise in the sense that we need to not think of it as, well, I got all the time in the, forever. Because when we're here, we do have a smaller time. So we need to not give in to evil by not trying to make sure that everyone knows that that option is available for them.
It's interesting that you say that. Fun fact, for those of you, if you got some more time later, go and read Colossians chapter 4, because it uses this same phrase, making the most of every opportunity or redeeming the time. And it is talking about it specifically in regards to engaging with people about why you follow Jesus. And so it's kind of talking about what you're saying, that like, hey, we live in a fallen world. This is ending. Like, what does it say in 1 John? That the world is going away. Like, it's passing away. It's leaving. And so, yeah, I absolutely think that almost all of us, if we are not careful, we would just be swept along by evil days. And if you don't believe that the days are evil, all of this will mean nothing to you. Like, why would I have to redeem my time if the days are not evil? Why would I have to do that, right? If there's nothing to fight against, if there's nothing to bring it back from, then this will mean nothing. But if you are convinced, bless you, that the days are evil, that things are wrong, that something is fundamentally broken in the world, and I actually even have to be careful about my time in bringing that back to God, then we can talk about what we're talking about today. So, yeah.
I would find it very difficult not to think that the days are evil. We hear my father said to me once, things are getting worse. And I said, Dad, you just didn't know what they were like. And all you doesn't matter what country you're in or who you're with, there is evil everywhere.
I'll agree with that. I will say that the conversation does advance. Like I was noticing this week, maybe you've seen the conversation about assisted suicide is really ramping up again by decisions that have been made in Canada and now things that are going to potentially be changing here. And I was just kind of reading the comments of like, what does the average person think about this? And it turns out a lot of people don't think that life is very good. And I get that, right? There's a reason why Paul from prison in Philippians 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. He doesn't say rejoice in life always, because sometimes life is hard, but you can always rejoice in Jesus and who he is and what he's done, right? But I get it. Life is hard. But as I was watching people's responses to assisted suicide, and don't get me wrong, there are so many things that can happen that can make you wonder if you want to keep going. I understand that. I want to be sensitive to it. But as I was watching people respond, they were saying things like, effectively, my body, my choice. Where have you heard that before? But if it is the case, as we learned in church today, that you do not get to take a life, that it is not yours, it turns out that it's not your body, it turns out it is not your life, then you can view it differently. And it turns out that how you think really matters. It will shape how you think about things. And so as you kind of get jarred by evil days, I encourage you to step back and go, well, why do I view this differently as a Christian? What is it specifically that sets my line of thinking apart? Because it can't just be the way that I judge the world, because it feels wrong to me, man. It's got to be something deeper. So, redeem the time, keep that in mind. If I can have somebody read kind of the first 7 verses of Ephesians chapter 5. The first 7.
Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love, just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma. But sexual immorality or any impurity or greed must not even be mentioned among you, as is proper among saints. And there must be no filthiness or foolish talk or vulgar joking, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. For this you know with certainty, that no no sexually immoral or impure or greedy person, which amounts to an idolater, has an inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. See that no one deceives you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not become partners with them.
All right. So when we talk about redeeming our time, again, we live in evil days. We have to choose to take what we are given and bring it back to the things of God. Probably one of the most obvious things in the world is that you cannot partner with evil. What are some ways that we partner with evil?
Well, I think because of COVID, a lot of parents became aware of the indoctrination of their children. We see this transgender on the rise. Now it's actually going down because I think it's opened up the eyes of parents thinking, well, they're with their teachers. What bad could come of it? No, we're the parents. We make the decision of what they should be learning. And only when our eyes were open because of COVID, because everything was online, like, what are they teaching our children? And it just blossomed into more evil from there. The evil just spread. Had it not been, it's almost like God used a bad, not like he did, he used a bad thing to open the eyes of, look at what they're doing to your children in public schools. Look at what they're teaching them.
Yeah, I'd say when things impact your kids and grandkids, that is really eye-opening because you just go, they don't know how to think yet. You are teaching them different ways about how to think, which is kind of what we're all on today. I remember when I went to college, I had this professor, and he asked this really tough question. He said, hey, how come all the people who believe in heaven believe that they're going there? And I remember just being like a really tough question. Until about a year or two later, when a friend of mine is in that class, and he's not a Christian, and he goes, yeah, this guy, he asked this great question. He said, how come all the people who believe in heaven believe they're going there? And it turned out in the years since I heard that question, I had been thinking about those things a little more deeply, getting more engaged with my faith. And I just said, oh, I did not even realize till right now that that professor is asking the same questions every single year. And he gets to come in with all of his education, with all of his time thinking it through, and he basically just gets to make the same argument for the 50th time. He's not going to hear something unique. He's had time to think about how he thinks, but you're hearing it for the first time, and it can really knock you off your feet. You were chatting about apologetics today. And so the funny thing about that particular question, I said, oh, that's funny. I can answer that now. How come all the people who believe in heaven believe they're going there? Let's just flip it around. How come all the people who don't believe in hell don't believe they're going there? Ta-da! It doesn't mean anything. It's just a gotcha question. You have to think about how things are set up. You have to think about the things that are being handed to your kids and grandkids because they don't have the framework to think about it yet. And if we're not careful, without even taking the time to redeem our time, to redeem the systems, because there are godly teachers, we all know this. Taking the time to redeem our systems, we just effectively partner with evil. Good thought. All right, anyone else? What are some other ways? Yeah.
I think that just on a very basic level, the assumptions that guide us or lead us to our belief system, we seldom ever really address people at the level of those assumptions. There are certain assumptions that other people hold that lead them to a worldview that is totally opposite to that which we hold. Understanding those assumptions, I think, is critical, and I think that's what it speaks about when in 2 Corinthians 10 it says, we are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. We are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. I think that greatly involves making the most of our time.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's funny that that particular passage talks about strongholds. If you remember, a stronghold is a place where someone has come in and they've effectively set up base. And if you are going to take back that land, you have to tear it down because it's something, as it says in there, that has set itself up against the knowledge of Christ. And so you're absolutely right that we have to do that as well if we are going to not partner with evil. Yeah.
I think it's also what he's writing to the church in Ephesus, right? He's essentially saying, now that you're believers, you can't just live the way that you were living before you were believers. So if you were listening to X type of music, you need to change how you're living. You can't just be like, I'm a believer and I'm living exactly the way I was before when I was a non-believer. So you can't be going to the same places. You can't be doing the same things. You can't be talking in the same way. You can't be treating your wife in the way you did before. It has to look different, he's saying. Like, now that you have Christ, you must look different than what you did before.
It's a great point. Kind of what we're getting into in these first 7 verses is things to not do. Like, what do we stop doing right out the gate? And so you've seen it in there. You've seen the list. Don't even have a hint of sexual immorality. No greed. And greed is a funny one in particular because most people, if you ask them, do you think you are greedy? Most people are like, no, it's not there. I don't have enough money to be greedy, right? But it's funny. The Bible doesn't tell us that the love or the money is evil, right? Like, money in and of itself is fine. And people play some funny games on this one. I remember hearing about this woman who was down in some small town in Alaska. And she's like, I'm done with money. Money's evil. And so what she was doing is that she was bartering things to get food. So she would clean someone's house and then she'd get food. She would do this. It's like, okay, but you're still partnering with people who use money. You are using money by proxy. Like, you getting one step back, but interacting with everyone else who has to use money doesn't count. You're still using it. And again, money is not evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. That's what the Bible says, right? And so the weird thing is that we can have a mindset about greed even if we have no money at all. Yeah.
I would say you're more apt to be greedy when you have no money.
Yeah, how so?
We need it so desperately. And we wouldn't call that greed because we think greed is I've got a lot and I want more. But if that's your concentration, isn't it still greed?
Yeah, I'd certainly say so. I mean, it's hard because if you've ever struggled to scrape together, I mean, like, I've been to the food bank. It's not fun, okay, to do all that stuff to kind of make life work. And I will also say there's the other side, too. I remember this is about 10 years ago, so you can up the numbers on this by now. But there were these interviews with all these people in Silicon Valley, the tech hub, where there's lots of money, lots of innovation and everything else. And they were interviewing people who literally had $1 million houses. That's what they own. And they said, hey, are you rich? And they said, no, because I'm surrounded by people who have $5 million houses. That's just what everything costs around here. And even my wife and I, like, we own a house now. So for many people, if you even own a house, you're in like another like stratosphere. So my wife and I own a house, and there's times where we look at the value of our house. It's like, did you ever think that you would own a house that is worth this? It just feels bizarre. We don't feel rich. And certainly I'm not greedy because I'm such a nice church boy who doesn't feel any of that stuff whatsoever. But then it turns out that I'll be at my job, and my job is surrounded by dealerships, car dealerships. And so there's always someone test driving a great car when I'm at work. My car is paid off. The bumper's falling off. I know, it's like 5 seconds away from falling over, and like, God help us if we have 2 car payments at the same time, all right? I really hope we're there. We don't have to go through that. But every time I see a nice car go by, I'm like, ooh. Suddenly, it's tempting. You know, and I'm not jealous of the car payment. I'm not jealous of that part. But it's like nice to have nice stuff. And I have to step back and go like, hold on. Your car's paid off. Like, chill out. Not all of us can, like rent a Nissan Leaf for a low amount, Anthony. Miss that window, mate. But nonetheless, I get it. It stirs up in me. And here the Bible tells us you can't have even a hint of that stuff. You can't even get close. For so many of us, what we want to do is we want to run up right to the line of sin and be like, I'm still good. I haven't sinned yet. And it's like, no. It's much further back. It's like when the Bible tells you that no temptation has seized you except what's common to man, but God is faithful, that he will provide a way out for you. It is not talking about you being 1 second away from wanting to steal the briefcase full of money. It's that little thought in your head, way further back, like me at my job where I'm like, ooh, why does everyone else get to drive a nice car? It's that. That's when I have to deal with it. That's when I have to redeem the time even in my thoughts. right there. Make sense? All right. Let's continue on. If I could have somebody read verses 8 through 11.
But now you are light in the Lord. Let us children of light. For the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. Want me to read
Yeah, one more verse there.
This is why it is said, wake up, sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.
Sorry, I should have said through 14 there. Thank you very much. That last section, wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. What verse is that quoting? If you're looking confused, it's because it's not a verse. It was actually a poem of their day where they were relating to the things of God and they were calling out his goodness. And here's the key. This is being said to Christians. It is entirely possible that as you get used to this Christian life, that you will stop remembering that the days are evil. You will forget that you have to redeem your time. You will go along with evil days getting drawn into a hint of sexual immorality, of greed, and everything else that was listed in those first verses. And you will effectively fall asleep to the dangers of sin. And yet as Christians, we are warned that we must remain vigilant and alert because our adversary walks around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And guess what? Even a roaring lion knows to keep quiet so it can get closer to its prey. And if you are just checked out and asleep, you will not be redeeming your time. You will not be doing those things. And so we have to kind of come back into it again. But I want to pay attention just to kind of some of the first verse that we read there. If somebody could read verse 8 one more time.
For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light.
Thank you. If you notice, it does not say you are in darkness and now you are in light. It's not as if you are just someone who is completely malleable to the circumstance. You're going, oh, well, that's true to a degree. What it is saying is that you have been redeemed. You were darkness. You are not that anymore. You have become light. And so part of the reason why we redeem our time and why we call these things out, as was just said in the verses that followed, is because you're not darkness anymore. You're light. And if you're light, everything gets illuminated. Your thought life gets illuminated. How you think about your spouse, how you think about your kids, how you think about work, it all gets illuminated before the Lord. Why? Because you are light. You become something different. It's funny, Anthony, you were kind of talking about you have to stop doing things and start doing other things. We're going to get to that in just 1 second. But in the chapter before this, it talks about those people who were stealing must steal no more. And it says that that person has to find something good to do with their hands. And that's a great principle. I don't know what you have struggled with in the past or what you still struggle with now, but it is not enough to simply stop sinning. You actually have to find something good to do with the ways that you sinned before. So if your mind was always thinking about worry, it is not enough to simply just try to not worry. You just sit there and you try real hard, like, I'm not worrying. You kind of still are. You actually have to find something good to do with your mind. You have to redeem the time. It is not enough to simply stop being darkness. It is time to start being light. And so you redeem your time by choosing to use whatever was used for sin before in ways that are good and true. So if you're someone who is worried, hey, It is time to spend time every day reciting how God is trustworthy and good and has been faithful to you. Tell those things. Redeem your time in that way. Illuminate your thoughts with God's love because he's called you to partner with him. I'll read the next section. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, or as I said, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. And here's where we'll end our text today. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. There's that, hey, stop doing this, start doing this. Speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Funnily enough, that Wake Up, O Sleeper line is exactly that. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I find it kind of funny how often the Bible tells you effectively, just stop being dumb. Really, it looks at you and says, don't live as unwise. You know better. It is time to live as someone who's wise. I was reading, even just lately, I think it's in 2 Corinthians. It talks about why you forgive, and it effectively says, you know better. This is the devil's scheme to keep you from getting along with people. You know better. Live as someone who is wise, who knows that it is right and true to forgive because what Jesus did for you on the cross. You can't live as someone who doesn't know better anymore. And sometimes, as Christians, we just have to encourage ourselves. Like, that sin that you struggle with, you don't need to read another book on it. You don't need to go talk to your therapist one more time. It's just time to live as a wise person. I'm not bagging on any of those things. I'm so appreciative for them. But sometimes it's just time to live as someone who is wise. It's just time to redeem my time from that. So, as you go out into your week, I'm curious, what are some ways that you all can think of right now as ways that you can redeem your time? Maybe in ways that you're comfortable sharing.
I've said it, I haven't done it yet. I may take something colorful and put it in different places because I get so involved in what I'm doing or something's on TV or whatever that I forget. But without him, without awareness of him, not just without him because he's in our lives, but really being aware of what he's doing, I can wander off in all sorts of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually have an alarm that goes off on my phone every day. It actually went off when we were sitting here. And it just says, redeem your time. It's just this reminder like, hey, don't go through today just thinking it's a normal day, but actually do this. And so it's really boring. I would love to tell you that I wake up and I'm like, yes, Lord, I am hearing your voice over me today. I must redeem my time. No, I just forget. I stumble downstairs. I eat cereal. Hopefully the caffeine kicks in before I have to drive to work. And I need these reminders. And so I actually have it like after I've woken up, after I've been doing things. And the amount of times that I go, oh yeah, I should do that. Even as someone who's being intentional, who leaves that alarm on every day and it's gone off every day for months, I still have to almost like be intersected by love of God. I have to set reminders to know him. Anyone else? Yeah.
I think if we exchange some of our time on TikTok with Bible reading, we could redeem quite a bit.
That's pretty good. It's funny. I'm so lame. I'll get you in just 1 second, mate. That I have to actually set time limits on everything on my phone because I'll just keep using it, and then I have to not get around it. It's like it just goes off. It's like, oh, I'm out of time today. It's 8:15 in the morning, and I'm out of time already. Awesome. Because otherwise, I'll just doom scroll. I'll just get swept along with the culture. I'll spend a week thinking about whatever the hot story is this week that no one will care about a month from now. And I will get every worldly line of thinking about it because I don't always step back to think about how I think. So yes, absolutely. Let me grab him real quick.
So going back to 8 again, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. I think we need to remember that once we were a and now we are a tool for light. We need to not forget who we were tools against when we were in darkness. So we need to go back and be that tool of light to those who we treated in darkness.
That's a fair point. Have you ever ran into people who knew you before you were a Christian? And that's always like a thing, and they go, oh, and they try to, without meaning to, they try to do the same things that you always did together before, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to hang out there now. It's like, why not? Well, it's exactly that. What's your thought?
I think just also framing everything as being grateful for what we do have in our lives. And I always tease Anthony when he complains about paying the bills. I'm like, you get to pay the bills. Like the fact that you're able to pay the bills, right? Be grateful. I think our mindset, how we interact in this world with all the even the bad stuff, right? That the fact that it's good stuff actually when you think about it. Like we are in this world of evil, but we have a different perspective, and we should be grateful that we have all the blessings that we do have. As those, even though some of those things seem like problems or.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I've heard that distinction. Was like, I was like, oh, I have to do this thing. It's like, no, you get to. Funny you mentioned gratitude, Dave. I'll get to you in just 1 second, mate. Because gratitude is actually mentioned twice in this section, in these 20 verses. It's one of the few things that's repeated in verse 4 and verse 20, I believe. And it talks about giving thanks. And thanks is such a weird thing because you're basically stopping and you're acknowledging to God that he has given you the energy, the resources, the time that you can redeem to go after him. And it's funny, as I kind of chatted with atheist friends, I'm sorry, did you want to?
No, I was even gonna just add on like the redeeming of time, like because me it's anxiety is my biggest thing, and I notice that my anxiety is not bad when I'm replacing it with gratefulness. It's hard to be anxious or upset when you're praising.
Yeah, it's so true. What's weird is, I've got a few people. I'll be quick here. There was a study that like people would take pencils and they would shove them between their teeth. So it's kind of like forcing you to smile. And you know what's really dumb? People got happier as they did this. So like, don't pretend that you can't manipulate your mind and your thinking. And so yes, when people say things like, oh, count your blessings, it's like, don't blow that stuff off. But I was talking about an atheist friend of mine who was suddenly giving thanks before meals. And I said, why? He said, well, I looked it up and it turns out the people who give thanks and have experienced gratitude, they're happier. And I said, but who are you giving thanks to before you have a meal? He said, no one. And I said, let me get this straight. You've taken something as selfless as giving thanks, and you're choosing to bypass the part where you give thanks to someone, and you're even making that selfish? And he said, yeah, pretty much. And we laughed because we're good friends. But it's like a strange thing, right? We can't do that. As we're giving thanks to God. It is psalms and hymns and moments of turning it back to him. We are redeeming our time even by giving thanks. It's a good thing. Dave, what you have? Glad to hear it. Randy, how about you, mate?
I think this conversation that we're having here would look very different if we were having it in a church in, let's say, Nigeria. And I think even in our setting here, it's hard to get beyond the here and now. Hard to get beyond the blessings and the judgments that occur just in our lifetime here, without a view of eternity. And yet, you have churches in other places where they don't have all this, and their only hope is in their view of eternity, because their lives are literally being taken from them. And so I think whatever it takes for us to really have a more of an eternal perspective is a very fruitful pursuit, I think.
It's a good shout, mate. I was listening to a pastor. He was talking about how he was preaching in Africa, and it was one of those great gatherings in the middle of nowhere where things were set up. And he said there were several experiences that were very strange to him. One is he was sitting on the stage and he was getting ready to preach, And he said there was literally 1 million people singing worship, and he said the force of that, like really set him back. He said he never experienced worship that way. And then even when it was time to pray, he heard this like engines fire up, like, gah, 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 gah. And what it was these trucks, flatbed trucks, like coming down so that people could hop on the flatbed truck to come to the front and get prayer because there was just that many people. But one of the things that really stuck with me and why I'm telling you this story is because there was this part where he couldn't understand the language that was being sung. He knew it was to Jesus and knew it was good, and he thought they had beautiful voices and everything else. But he leaned over to the translator and he said, "Hey, what's this song about?" He said, "Oh, it's about heaven." It's like, "Oh, great." Next song comes by and he's like, "What's this song about?" He's like, "It's about heaven." Okay. Third song comes. "What's the song about?" "It's about heaven." And he started to get it that he was dealing with people who life was often so hard, the years were so short, that truly a lot of their hope was in the next life and the things to come. And so all of their songs, all of their focus, their worship was in view of that, which is actually good. I want to be someone like that. I want to be someone who gets out of thinking about my life just in terms of what I can make of it and what I can make out of it. I met a guy named Bill in a different state. I was in Michigan doing some work there. And this guy, Bill, was in his 70s when I met him, and he was a missionary. And what was cool is that he had never been a missionary until he retired in his kind of his late 60s. And he just went, "Well, I said I was going to go on a mission trip. Why don't I go? You know, I've got a relatively small window of which I can go travel the same way. Sometimes I can get cut off, even if, you know, you can still go around." And so he started doing mission trips to Africa. And I remember the story that's always stuck with me is that he came back and he said that when he was there, at this point he was in his 70s, and they looked at him and they said, "How old are you?" Because they could tell he was a lot older. And when he told him, they said, "Oh, wow, God has blessed you with 2 lives." Because for them, their lifespan was so much shorter. And he came back and he encouraged all of his friends who were playing hands of bridge, getting another round of golf. And he's like, "God has blessed us with a second life. How are we going to use it for him?" And that was one of his great ways of redeeming the time, even in the big scope of things. And as far as I know, that guy died in the mission field. Love that guy, Bill. So blessed to hear his story and find out what he was all about. So, as we wrap up today, I encourage you this week, do what you have to do to redeem the time. One of the other ways I redeem the time is not just an alarm on my phone, is I leave my Bible open right where I'll see it when I come down my stairs. That way I don't just blow by and get on with my day. If I've got an open Bible there, I'll just pick it up and start reading it. I've learned to trick my brain. Like whatever you have to do to fight against really just going along with the evil days, I encourage you to do it this week. Set up places where you can redeem your time. If you are married or you've got someone that you live with who can remind you of things, tell them what your plan is this week to redeem your time, and have them grill you and check in on you, because otherwise you'll just get swept along by evil days. Let's pray and we'll wrap up, okay? God, I thank you so much that you have given us the ability to be renewed by the transforming of our mind. And I pray that this very week, each and every one of us would take places to redeem our time, to stop doing the things that you warn against that can really mess us up, and to start doing things that are good and for your kingdom. We thank you for your goodness, Lord. Amen. Hey, thanks all for being here.
Oh, no, no, I was fine actually. I arrived at like 26%. And then I was concerned getting back down because the cart was like coming for like 36 hours. So just like a regular. Yeah, that's what I was.
Were you just at work today? It was good, like usual.
Yeah, I was really curious.
Michael Ballard, attending here. I didn't know that because I'm always downstairs, so I don't. He's a psychologist. Well.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's interesting actually that Crystal brought up the whole bill thing. We talked about that specifically about like, not putting off the bills and, facing your pain.
Get down okay?
Yes. Thanks, Joe.
Not his problem, but it was good.